We're beginning today by speaking about diversity. And by the way, if we haven't met, I'm Joyce Dufala. I'm the assistant minister here. And it's my delight to introduce this month's theme with the topic of diversity. That word diversity sometimes makes me a little nervous because, it's like, okay, we're going to talk about people who aren't like me. Okay, I get it. But in fact, of course, diversity has a very wide meaning. And the word itself comes from Latin. It comes from divertere, which simply means to turn in different directions. So I like that a lot, because if I'm here, I'm seeing one thing. If I'm here, I'm seeing another thing. Or if I'm here, I'm paying attention to something specific that is different from standing here and paying attention to something specific over here. Or if I have an object, and I turn it, I perceive it from different angles. A couple of weeks ago, Dr. Kim Kaiser spoke, and the thing is, people have been telling me how great he is because, you see, I'm married to him. So people have this idea that if they tell me something, it'll make it to him. Sometimes. If I remember. I always say to people, it's wonderful. Have you told him? Anyhow, during his talk, he used a quote, and when I spotted it, I thought, perfect for today. Ernest Holmes, who, of course, is the 20th century spiritual philosopher whose work we study extensively here, Holmes said this: "While we have one common source, divine wisdom has seen fit to make each an individual. Unity does not mean uniformity. There is unity at the center and infinite variation at the circumferences." He also said this: "Everything in the universe is a unique, individualized expression of the one thing that is the cause of all things. No two blades of grass are alike. No two thumbprints. No two anything." I mean, really, what a boring, original, creative cause it would be if it only created one type of thing. Can you imagine living in a world where there was just a bunch of all the same thing? And yet that doesn't stop me from thinking on kind of a frequent basis that I wish everybody were like me. Now, for a long time, I've suspected that actually wouldn't be so great. But this past week, I had actual hard evidence. So I had some papers that I needed to organize, and a friend of mine offered to help organize these papers, and I leapt at the opportunity because I like her a lot. We're similar. Our personalities are similar. When we get together, the flow of communication, no edges at all. And it turns out that when it comes to organization, we are also alike, which means it's not our best skill, and we don't actually like it. So we went through this, what became for us a kind of an arduous task that lasted a long time and involved a lot of mumbling to ourselves and kind of a struggle. And by the end, we were both kind of depleted. Now, I'm happy to say the friendship is intact, but I really got, no, I don't want to be in a world where everybody is like me. It is a good thing that we're different. It's a good thing that there are people who are not me. It's good that there are differences among us. It can be mutually beneficial. The difficulty is when we see a difference and we don't like it. Or more accurately, when we don't understand it. And maybe we even make the mistake of labeling a difference we see in somebody else as not as good as me. Well, thank goodness, over the past several decades, there's been lots of research being done on different personality types. And this research has brought to light all kinds of things that are helping us understand each other, helping us avoid conflict with each other, actually helping us value our differences and use our differences for mutual benefit. So here is another example from my life. We have to cast our mind back in time. Some of you probably weren't even born yet. It's the late 70s, and I'm starting to date a guy named Kim Kaiser. Now, I come from a family whose great joy it is on a Sunday to spend the afternoon sitting together for about 4 hours on a couch and chit-chatting. And so, I'm dating this guy, and so he came to some of these family gatherings a couple Sundays, and then one Sunday he said to me, "Do you think we could do something else today other than visit your family?" Well, this is like an emotional shock wave with all these kind of aftershock thoughts like, gee, he doesn't like my family. And I guess that means he really doesn't like me. Well, fast forward to the mid-'80s, and we're married 7 years later, and I think I'm still suspecting in the back of my mind that he doesn't like my family. And at this point, the Myers-Briggs starts to come to the fore. The Myers-Briggs personality profile test starts to come to the fore in a big way. And so we each take it, and one of the categories is extrovert and introvert. And I realize this is very common knowledge now, but it was like news in the 80s. So lo and behold, it comes to light that Kim's an introvert and I'm an extrovert. One of the things that it means that for me as an extrovert, when I'm with people, I tend to get energy. Whereas for Kim, he gets energy more likely when he's alone. Meaning that 4 hours of chit-chat was something that energized me but depleted him. So there it was. When I realized this, it was instantaneous forgiveness for 7 years, forgiving Kim for not wanting to be with my family, and forgiving me for blaming him all these years and thinking he didn't like my family. And I had to forgive myself for thinking badly about my family itself. Holmes has something to say to us. If our human relations are to mean the most to us, we must sense that there is hidden within, around, and through each of us a divine presence manifesting itself in infinite variations. The same impulse, the same love and life, but never quite alike in any two persons. So let's hang on to this idea, the same impulse, the same love and life, but never alike in any two persons. So all those years, Kim and me, each of us was seeking rejuvenation on a Sunday afternoon in our individual ways. Me in my own way of sitting and chit-chatting with my family, and him by inviting me to go out in nature with him and take a hike. It had nothing to do with my family, simply two different ways of experiencing peace and rejuvenation. Holmes again. We need never view human personality as something unreal or unworthy, but rather as an individualization of the divine. It is the universal spirit that is incarnated in each one in a unique way, and that gives warmth, color, and variation to that which otherwise would be an eternal monotony. Well, clearly, none of us wants an eternal monotony. So how can we reduce the chances for misunderstanding and conflict? This diagram represents a very common pitfall in our thinking. So on the bottom, it's symbolizing that an actual event takes place. There's an actual event, neutral. However, in my view of it, I give it my interpretation. And then my interpretation starts to form a generalized worldview that, wouldn't you know it, next time there's another actual event, that worldview is already shaping my perception of it. And so it goes. So in my example, the actual event was Kim saying, "Can we do something today rather than visit your family?" Now, I didn't explore the reasons behind that request. I made an assumption. My interpretation was, Kim doesn't want to be with my family. And then that led to a general worldview that said, Kim doesn't like my family. And by gum, for the next 7 years, you betcha, anytime he referred to my family, I was looking for evidence. Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. I knew he didn't like them. I knew he didn't like them. I mean, this whole drama's going on that he's not even aware of. So back to the question, how can we reduce the chances for misunderstanding and conflict? Well, number one, we can remember the differences are natural, and actually they are more than natural. They are by divine design. Differences are by divine design. If you see someone who's different from you, it's a gift. It's your divine lover saying, I have something for you. The second thing is, if we find ourselves judging someone for their difference, we can take a moment to review the actual incident that has led to that judgment. We can have a little conversation with ourselves like, well, I don't like so-and-so. Oh, really? Because? Well, because they did such and such. Oh, and that means what? It means they're not a nice person. I see. Can you think of another reason they might have done that? And so it is that this kind of self-reflection can bring to light that statement, the same impulse, the same love and life, taking different forms of expression. The example that we looked at was about two different people, me and Kim, but we have a lot in common. We're around the same age. We're both people who grew up in the Midwest and then moved to Northern California. We're college educated. So you can appreciate how much more opportunity there might be for misunderstanding when it involves people whose backgrounds are not alike. This story comes from the mid-60s, Los Angeles. Blatantly unfair treatment of black citizens by white police erupts into 6 days of what became known as the Watts riots. Because of the unrest, black children in the area were only able to continue their education by being bused to schools untouched by the rioting, schools with white teachers who had never worked with black children. Our story focuses on one particular elementary school where this setup was not working well. The white teachers were becoming frustrated and suspicious, and tensions between teachers and students were escalating. Due to this increasing tension, the school requested an outside consultant to come in, a consultant familiar with intercultural dynamics. Now, she was a white woman, but she had spent time studying the kind of mishaps that can happen when people might not have the same background. So she came in to the teachers and started talking to them, and sort of at the beginning of a reflective process like this. And the first thing she heard was the teachers saying, "These students are troublemakers. These students are liars." But as she kept probing as to how the teachers got that impression, one of the teachers said, "All I can tell you is that these black students never look you in the eye." Aha! The actual event, a student not looking into the eye of the teacher. Now, of course, in the cultural background of the teachers, making eye contact is associated with honesty and forthrightness, as in, I have nothing to hide. And here were these black children who were not making eye contact with them. So our intercultural resource person went back to UCLA to one of her black colleagues and said to him, "Can you tell me a reason why a black child might not look their teacher in the eye?" And he said, "Well, yes, of course, they're showing respect." So here were the children trained at home to respect elders by averting eye contact, interacting with teachers who expected eye contact as a sign of honesty. Here were the children relaying respect, and here were the teachers not recognizing this form of respect and making judgments based on their own way of behaving, their own behavioral norms. The same impulse, the same love and life, but never quite alike in any two persons. I was in the Peace Corps as a young woman, and one of the things I learned as a guideline is that if you're ever interacting with somebody from a different culture and you come to a point where you think something's wrong with them, or maybe even, God, that was crazy, what you're probably running into is an intercultural difference. A difference in worldview, perhaps a difference in values, certainly a difference in expressing values. The same impulse, the same love and life, but never quite alike. I'd like to share an example that comes from the book Cross-Cultural Dialogues by Craig Storty. And in this little dialogue, we have an American woman who's working in a Japanese company. Now, as you may have noticed if you grew up in the States, high value is placed on individual effort and achievement. You might remember some of the many ways you were encouraged to make it on your own, to excel for who you are, to personally triumph over the competition. So you can imagine that there might be a misunderstanding when an American of the do-it-on-your-own worldview interacts with someone from a culture that places more importance on group cooperation rather than the individual standing out. So here we are in Japan at work. Mr. Kaneda says, "Are you satisfied then, Ms. Walden, with the work of the accounting division?" And Ms. Walden, the American, says, "Very much. Their output has improved tremendously." Mr. Kaneda, "They're very proud of their work." Ms. Walden, "As soon as you put Mr. Yamamoto in charge, things began to turn around." Mr. Kaneda, Yes, the whole team is working very smoothly now. Ms. Walden, will you be giving Mr. Yamamoto some kind of recognition then? Mr. Kaneda, excuse me? Ms. Walden, you know, an award or something. Mr. Kaneda, I hardly think so. We wouldn't want to embarrass him after all he's done. So I can imagine these two people leaving the conversation thinking, oh my, what happened? What was that? What's wrong with that person? When basically Mr. Kaneda is surrounded by people, he's immersed in a culture where it's the group. It's the interconnected effort that succeeds. Yes, there's competition in Japan, but it's between groups. Yes, individuals are individual, but never seeking to stand out away from the group. Many different expressions of the one source. Finally, as Holmes explains, the thought of God must be the cause of all that exists. And as there are many existing things, there must be many thoughts in the mind of the infinite. An infinite mind would conceive an infinite variety of ideas. Hence, the world of multiplicity or many things. But the world of multiplicity does not contradict the world of unity, for the many live in the one. We've traveled to a lot of different places in this talk today, and so as we close today, I invite you to bring your attention to yourself, to your own life, to your own wonderful expression of the divine, surrounded by all these other expressions of the divine. As you turn within, I invite you to get comfortable, perhaps taking a moment to relax your body. And I invite you to bring to mind someone who is dear to you, someone close, someone you love, someone you know well. Can you think of one way in which you two are different? And can you see how this difference is of value to you in your relationship? And now think about, how are you the same? What unites you?
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.
And now bring to mind an acquaintance, someone you kind of know, maybe someone you work with. Can you think of one way in which you two are different? Can you see how this difference is of value to you in your relationship? And now think about, how are you the same? What unites you?
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.
Finally, bring to mind someone who you're not close with, someone you don't know well, or perhaps don't want to know well. Can you think of one way in which you two are different? Can you see how this difference is of value to you in your relationship? And now think about, how are you the same? What unites you?
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.
And so I remember that the love, the harmony, the good of God is present right here, is always present right where each of us is, because we are it. So I accept with us an appreciation for the miracle the Divine One has created in this world of so much diversity. I accept an open heart and curious mind that allows us to recognize more and more the gifts that are brought about by things being different. I bring about a desire to not only understand, but thrive and appreciate these differences. So as we go forward from this day, I give thanks for the way each of us feels more joy, more peace, more delight in this world we live in, of varied expressions of the Divine One itself. With a sense of thanksgiving, I simply say, and so it is. Amen.